Hi, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today we have a very special guest, someone who is one of our really important people here on our team and has done a number of different things in his somewhat short tenure with the company, but really excited to have him on today. Today on the podcast, we have Greg Fetterman. Welcome to the podcast, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, Greg has a somewhat of an interesting background as far as how he made it here to Peterman and then has taken on a few different roles here while he's been here. So excited to hear that. And Greg, to start off, why don't you just share with the listeners a little bit about your story?
Well, I started out plumbing when I was 13 years old, working for my uncle. And anytime I was off school, I went to work while everybody else went out and played ball and stuff. So just kind of grew into that, learned to do service from him, learned to do new construction from the guys that worked with him. And from there, I ended up owning my own business for 10 years. And at the end of that tenure, I started here at Peterman. Thought it'd be a good opportunity and a place to hopefully retire from. And since I've started here, I started a little over 3 years ago now as a service plumber. Figured I'd be a service plumber for the rest of my life. And an opportunity for a field supervisor came up, and I stepped into that role for about 11 months. And then the branch manager at Columbus came up. Thought I'd throw my name in the hat for that. And lo and behold, I got the job. So here I am today as the branch manager down at Columbus, running the HVAC and plumbing department down here.
Awesome stuff. One thing I want to dive into, and you often hear guys like yourself who started at a very young age. And, while we don't have any 13-year-olds on staff, we do have guys that are in their early 20s and probably in a very similar spot to what you were. What advice would you give to people? I often hear people like, hey, I want to get started in this trade, yet you check in with them 6 months down the road and still their skill set is just, they haven't really, they've been doing it, but they haven't really been absorbing that information. What advice would you give to someone who's young, wanting to get into this trade and really to take those initial steps? What advice would you give them, or what things can you remember from when you first started that really helped you kind of grasp what was going on and allowed you to be successful?
Well, most people learn from hands-on experience, and being as I was working for family, that's how I learned, was trial by fire. They pretty much introduced me to a shovel the first day and told me that was going to be my best friend. And through the years, they just let me do a little more here and there. And the more hands-on I got, the more I learned. And just pay attention to what people are doing. I can learn a lot from watching another guy, by the way he does his work. And like I said, getting hands-on, don't just stand back and hope that you're going to learn something watching somebody. If you can't get hands-on, you're not going to be successful no matter what it is, whether it's, plumbing, HVAC, electric, it doesn't matter. You need to be hands-on and learn that way. And that's pretty much how I learned. I mean, and once I, whether I liked it or not when I started, I don't remember, probably not, but I liked the paycheck at the end of the week. And
exactly,
I stuck with it, and I figured out that I wasn't college material while I was in high school, and this was a job that I could do for the rest of my life. And I've just taken it and run with it. And I never expected to be where I am today. I figured that, I'd either retire as a service plumber or they drag me out from somebody's crawl space or a cabinet when I passed away. So, that's, that was my attitude towards it. And like I said, I had no idea that I could, get to where I am today.
Yeah, I think that's extremely insightful, and I think that obviously most probably don't know you super well, but we've had a lot of conversations here recently with some of our younger guys, and being a smaller branch. And I think one of the things that I really admire about you is I feel like you lean on that, having started really young, kind of that trial by fire, as exposing some of our younger guys to that fire. I feel like sometimes in our society, especially today, we want to shield someone from, that failure that they may experience out there. What's kind of your mindset when you take a young guy who doesn't have a ton of experience, and you throw them out there and just say, you know what, if you fail, that's okay. I'm right here behind you. That's the only way you're going to learn. What's kind of your thought process when you give somebody an opportunity like that where they may fail?
Well, you don't know what you can do until you try it. And due to some unfortunate circumstances down here in Columbus, we've got two young guys down here that are actually maintenance plumbers. And I asked them about it if they want to take the opportunity, and they jumped at the opportunity. Yeah, if you can give us more opportunities, we'll give it a shot. And I reminded them I'm only a phone call away. With the background I have, I can talk them through pretty much anything over the phone. If I can't, I can go out and help them. And those guys have been, the top tech graduates that I have down here have been more than willing to jump into it, try anything once. And if they have a question, they're not afraid to call. They don't feel like they failed because they had to call me. They feel like they're learning something because they had to call me, and I can give them an answer, or I can come out and show them how to do whatever particular thing they're working on. But they've both been really successful. I'm really proud of what they're doing. And the trial by fire thing, that's the old school way of thinking, I guess. That's kind of how I was raised. And, my parents raised me the same way. If you don't try it, you're never going to know if you can do it or not. So, fail or not, I mean, if you fail, you pick yourself back up, or, family, coworkers, whatever will pick you back up and get you back on the right path. And it was successful for me, and it's been really successful for these guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's almost a benefit to just eliminate the word failure out of your vocabulary. There is no such thing as failure if you're learning from it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you may mess something up, you may not know what you're doing exactly, but the fact that you have exposed yourself to a situation that is unfamiliar or that you've never seen before is going to allow you to grow so long as you embrace it as an opportunity to grow. It's when we get frustrated or scared and we don't take on something new that, well, ultimately, you're never going to get any better at that. You're never going to get any better at running a service call if you never run a service call. It,
Right.
I think it is fairly, I haven't ran many service calls, but I'm going to guess that I could prepare a guy for 2 years, but if I never let him run a service call, he's never going to get any better at that. And I think that is sometimes where we're scared to let these guys, experience that. And I think that if I think back on your journey here, Greg, I think that there's been times, and you mentioned it earlier, where you thought you'd be a service plumber, and now you're taking on these new and different roles. And I'm sure there was some um, anxiety, apprehension when you're taking on a new role, and we're asking you to do something different. What are some of the things that you found helpful as you transition from, kind of an individual contributor role to a role where you're really supporting others? What were those things that really helped you kind of bridge that gap there?
Really, the leadership that you guys have established at the company, and just the people around me. I mean, I knew as well when I took both of those jobs, the field supervisor and the branch manager here at Columbus, that I couldn't fail unless I absolutely didn't try, because the leadership was going to step up. They were going to help me. They were going to point me in the right direction. And as I said before, they were only a phone call away. It's no different than how I treat my guys. I mean, they may not be immediately available, but everybody will get back to you. If you have a question or you're not sure how to proceed with the next step, they'll get back to you and give you some advice. They don't always give you the exact answer you're looking for, but they'll be able to pull the answer out of you and make you think about it to where you can come up with a solution to the problem, and you grow from that. I mean, that's all there is to it. You learn from just by doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. And I think that is one of the things that we hopefully hang our hat on here. And it's one thing that I feel like that we have to untrain from some people who may join our team from somewhere else where, they were, walking on eggshells trying to do the right thing every time, where we actually would rather you try something. There's very few things that are going to get anybody in serious jeopardy around here. That if you got a new idea, hey, let's give it a shot. Or if you don't know an answer, it's okay to ask. Like, no one expects you to have every single answer. No one does.
Right.
And so why are we so afraid of not having all the answers? Simply asking. If you don't ask, you're never going to find out what the answer is. And I think that is definitely something that we all can learn from and reflect back on as we take on different challenges. One of the things I want to ask you about, Greg, because obviously we have worked fairly closely together as you have kind of worked your way up. And there was a time, and I don't think you'll mind me sharing this with people. There was a time when uh, you were very comfortable with being a plumber, and taking on kind of that leadership role was something that it wasn't like you were scared of it or didn't want to. It was just like, you know what, I'm good at what I do, and I don't really want to do that. But then there was kind of a turning point where that became, hey, I think I really want to do this. I think I can really make an impact. What were some of those things that led to kind of that turning point for you?
Well, I mean, everybody likes to stay comfortable. They don't like to get outside their comfort zone. And that's where I was. I was making enough money to support my family and do the things that we wanted to do in life. And I, like I said, I was comfortable. I mean, I was good at what I did, not bragging in any way, but I was a pretty good plumber and I had a good relationship with my customers. But there comes a time where your body starts to tell you that, this is not what you can do for the rest of your life if you want to still be able to do something after you retire. And I got to the point where talking to the guys who, they reached out to me a lot, and I trained a lot of our plumbers we have today. They rode with me in a truck when they started at Peterman. And, I got a good relationship with those guys. And I thought, when they started looking for a field supervisor, that if I stepped into that role, I would have those guys respect because they knew the kind of work I did and I knew what they did. So I could help them, with their struggles or congratulate them with their wins and, their victories. So stepping into that role for me was just kind of the next step at the company. I never, like I said, I never thought I'd do it, but, my wife and I talked about it and I decided to do it. And I thought I did a pretty good job at it. And I think the guys did too. I mean, I helped a few of them along the way. And by being out there with a bunch of different guys, I actually learned some stuff from them as well.
Yeah, Greg, I'll go ahead and set the record straight. You're more than a pretty good plumber. I appreciate
I
your
appreciate that.
humbleness. I appreciate your humbleness, but that wouldn't be giving respect to what you truly are. So, yeah, I mean, I think that oftentimes, and I talk to people about this a lot, and it's what's kind of prompted us to begin our what we're calling kind of our manager and training program, which we didn't have when you were making that transition, which probably would have helped. But hey,
Yeah,
live and learn. Trial by fire, right, Greg?
that's
Um,
exactly right.
so, um, and I think that the one thing that we're trying to really help people with is understanding that a leadership role, while you may be the best plumber that ever walked the earth, it's not going to help you be the best manager that ever walked the earth. And I think that some people often think, well, I have all the technical ability, I should be a really good manager. And to me, it's two totally different skill sets. How do you kind of navigate that other skill set when it comes to leadership and management, as opposed to you know using that, you've got all the technical tools, you've got that tool bag's full for you, but that leadership one is one that muscle that you have to flex a little more now in your current role, and even as a field supervisor too. But what are some of those major differences that you see between the two roles, whether it be an individual contributor, a plumber, service plumber, or in the role that you're in now? What are the biggest differences as far as that's concerned?
The biggest difference I think is how to coach each individual tech that's working for me at this point in time. I did things a certain way. but I know these guys are a lot younger than I am. They probably weren't raised the same way I was. And you have to find the certain, where you want to call it, niche or whatever, that, for each guy, how to get through to them, what they're struggling with. And they have to be comfortable enough with you to tell you what's going on, whether it might be something at home or whether, it's something with a customer or something with just how they carry themselves. I mean, there's each one of these guys down here is a little bit different, and it wasn't any different when I was in Indy as the field supervisor. I mean, there's certain things you can say to certain guys, and they pick up on it, and then other you have to say it in a different way to somebody else. Which that's been my biggest struggle, is just learning the different personalities and the different things. But I do ask a lot of questions. I've talked to my managers as well as other guys that, Dan, the field supervisor up in Indy, me and him bounced a lot of ideas off each other when we were both doing the field supervisor job. And he still calls me and I still call him. But I've also reached out to my youngest son who's in sales just to find out some different verbiage or something that I could use to help one of our techs that was struggling out in the field when they were talking to customers.
Absolutely. So I think you've said a lot of good things there. One of the things I'd like to highlight is, the fact that everyone needs a little bit something different.
Right.
And I think as if there's one piece of advice that I would give is that in leadership, it's not about what you want. It's about what the people that you're leading need. And they all need something different. As you said, everyone's been raised a certain way. Everyone may not have had some of the advantages. Some people may have had more advantages. Everybody comes from somewhere different. And the important thing to remember is that's okay. It's perfectly fine. It's
Right.
perfectly fine that millennials act the way millennials do. And it's perfectly fine the way that each generation acts the way they do. That's perfectly fine because at the end of the day, that's the way they were raised and that's the way they were functioned. So rather than complain about, oh, these guys and this, that, and the other, um, let's find out, let's ask those questions. Let's understand what motivates them. Let's understand why they do the things that they do. And then we can actually lead them to getting better. Just because you're a millennial doesn't mean that you don't want to get better. It just means that getting better may look a little bit different than a different generation and what getting better means. They may need to be shown a little bit differently. Well, that could come from a variety of different places, whether it's the education that they got, the upbringing that they got, whatever that is. That's perfectly fine. It's okay. And as leaders, the quicker we understand that everyone that we lead, to steal a term from Jack Needham, everyone's perfect. They're good the way they are. And we just have to figure out a way to connect with them, ask the right questions, and then lead and motivate them. Just like you pointed out, some guys you can, get on a little bit tougher than others. Other guys you need to, pull aside and pat them on the back. And either way is perfectly fine. And it's when we understand that not everybody's wired like us, and they're not going to be. And the minute that the quicker that we realize that they're not going to be like us, and they're not going to understand it, and they're not going to do the things that we do, the quicker we're going to make a connection with them. Because trying to change them is the fastest way to frustrating somebody. No one wants to be changed. We
Right.
all want to grow and we'll change as a result. But I'm not going to go to Greg and change him. Greg is who he is. And Greg needs he needs something different from me than, maybe a manager that we have that's in their mid 20s. It's all different, but it's all okay. What are some resources that you use? You mentioned, reaching out to managers and kind of the atmosphere. What are some of the other resources? I know you and I are often trading books or talking about books together. So what outside of books and different things like that, what are some of the things you're using to kind of just sharpen that leadership skill of yours?
I spend a lot of time on the Nexstar website. watching some of their wake up call videos, just digging into, if a guy comes to me with a question, I don't have the answer for it. I'm going to dig in until I find it. And I found a lot of information on the Nexstar website, which I've shared with other managers, and other managers have shared, stuff like that with me. But just, a lot of it's real life experiences. I mean, getting out with the guys, if they're struggling and I can go in a house with them and just listen to what they're telling the customer or how they're talking to the customer, I might be able to pick something up that, they're missing because they do it the same way every time. And it's resources that I wish I had when I was out there. I think I
Certainly.
would have been more successful, had I, the old saying, had I known then what I know now, that's huge for me. And for me to be able to take my life experiences or my experiences in the plumbing field and share them with these guys. And, like I said before, I reached out to my youngest son. He's half my age, but he's a pretty smart kid. He's not a kid, but he is to me. And, he's college educated. He's, like I said, he's in the sales field. And not that we're a sales company, but just certain things he uses to talk to the customers. And that's, it jumps back and forth between what he does and what we do. And it's all customer relations. You just have to put the customer at ease that you're the right person to take care of their home and to take care of the issue they're having that day. And that's, any resource I can find like that, like you said, reading books and watching the videos and just reaching out to other people. I mean, I learn a lot from other people's experiences as well as, passing my experiences on to the younger guys.
Certainly. I think you said something really important there that I think, we've talked a lot about trial by fire on this episode, but I think one of the most important things that you just said there is coupling trial by fire with spending time with your people and reviewing their results and being there to support them. And, trial by fire is a heck of a lot easier when you have the support behind you that you're not really in a fire. You're just in a new circumstance and someone's there with you. You just may not know it.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine. So I think that's a really important thing that I know you do a great job of having one-on-ones with your guys, finding out what's going on, reviewing their progress, going out with them to better understand what is it that they may be missing. Hey, they're running into some issues and they haven't been really seeing the success that we're used to seeing from them. They may just be missing something, or they may just be kind of in a rut and they just need, hey, you're not even doing this little step. Shoot, I totally forgot. I wasn't even paying attention. Okay, perfect. And then get them right back on the right track. So I think that level of support is what's led to a lot of your success as well in the role that you're in, because you're actively concerned, willing to put them in situations that they may be a little bit uncomfortable, but also on the other hand, knowing that you're only a phone call away, as you said earlier. I think one of the other things that you said that's extremely important is, the piece about reaching out to your son. I'm a huge believer that there is, it's very easy to stay in your industry and just consult with what's going on there. But sometimes we learn the most when we get outside of the box and start asking other people, hey, what do you think about this? Your son probably can provide some better feedback as to what it's like to be a customer. We're in it every day. Well, why don't we understand? Why didn't the customer understand about a sump pump? Well, your son can probably provide feedback that well, they wouldn't know anything like that. I wouldn't even know anything like that. Or whatever it may be. So I think using those outside resources is yet another way that is only really going to stack up, on kind of your leadership knowledge, and availability to, ability to offer resources to your people for sure. So, Greg, as we wrap up here, and I really appreciate the time. I hope people have learned a lot from a guy who's been really at every different role, running your own company, service plumber, on up to field supervisor, on up to branch manager. So a lot of experience there, and I'm sure people have learned a lot about what I hope is kind of that big step between leader between management and being an individual contributor, which I think is extremely insightful. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are looking for what's going to bridge that gap. And you obviously have found great success in bridging that gap and being successful really at every place that you've been in the company. If you were going to leave the listeners with something, kind of a takeaway or something that you've ran across recently, or something that, hey, I really kind of always believe in this, what would that look like for you to share something that is really just near and dear to your leadership philosophy and the way that you lead your people?
I think it would be that, manager, owner, whatever your title is, you're really no better than anybody else. I look at myself not as the branch manager down here, but as the team coach. And that's kind of the philosophy I use with it. These are my players, and I'm the coach. I have to keep it all moving in the same direction. But I'm nothing without the rest of the team. It's no different than, like you said, moving through these different positions here at Peterman. If it wasn't for the support of my wife, I wouldn't be where I am today. She's she supported me no matter what decision I went home and said, "Hey, I'm going to start getting a lot more phone calls in the evening, or I'm not going to be on call anymore." She supported me no matter what I've decided to do, and that's the best thing you can do. As a manager, as a coworker, just support the rest of the team. If you're not going to be a team player, you made the comment about an individual contributor. There really are no individual contributors. It has to be a full team effort. The Indianapolis branch has had huge success this month with their plumbing department. If it wasn't for all of them working together, training each other, helping each other, you know, it wouldn't happen. If everybody was an individual, it doesn't work that way. It has to be a full team effort, and no one piece of the puzzle is any better than the rest of it, is the way I look at it.
Fantastic. Well, the reason I do these is because I like to learn stuff, and Greg just taught us something. Not to use the word individual contributor because that makes no sense whatsoever. Thank you for that. I will no longer be using that because you are right. It is a team effort, and regardless of what role you play, always remember that you're just part of the team. You just play
Right.
a different role. And I think that is extremely true. Just because you are quote unquote the manager, guess what? You can't run any of the plays. Much like a coach in football or a coach in basketball, no matter how good of a plumber Greg is, at the end of the day, his guys have to go run the plays. They've got to go run the calls. And so his influence on them is to inspire them to want to be better. It's not to tell them what to do. It's not to, go run the call for them. It's, as a leader, your job is to inspire growth in others. It's to inspire them to want to go do a fantastic job out there because that is your role on the team. Unbelievable, Greg. Great stuff there. Surely everyone has learned something. I've learned a few things as well, which is great. Always refreshing to talk to you, and it couldn't be more excited for your success and what has been an unbelievable start to our kind of full-blown Columbus operation down there. While you're part of the team, you've played a huge role in it. And inspiring those at that branch to do some really, really cool things here. Just, really what's kind of 3 months in, if you will. We'll count 4. December, we kind of took off a little bit. But thanks a lot, Greg. I really appreciate you being on. And until next time, we'll see you then.